straight up, are you going into schools and arresting children at schools?
No.
Is anything like that happening?
No, sir.
Are you going into businesses and sweeping through there and taking anybody with a tan and seeing where they're from?
We go into businesses for a criminal enforcement operation, but again, sweeps don't occur anywhere.
The sweeps are not occurring. You're just not going in like seining for fish in a pond and just picking up. You're going targeted. If a criminal is working in a business and you have to pick them up there, you're going in for that target.
Absolutely.
That was yesterday. You saw it live right here on Dr. Phil's Merit TV. Dr. Phil speaking with President Trump's border czar Tom Homan at the ICE Command Center in Chicago. They were discussing the very deliberate, tactical approach to target very specific criminals who are in our country illegally.
Yeah, that message going against the popular narrative being touted by the president's critics that immigration officials are being unnecessarily heavy-handed. Vice President J.D. Vance, in his first interview since taking office, addressed this issue head on. Take a listen.
Of course, if you have a person who is convicted of a violent crime, whether they're an illegal immigrant or a non-illegal immigrant, you have to go and get that person to protect the public safety. That's not unique to immigration. I support us doing law enforcement against violent criminals, whether they're illegal immigrants or anybody else, in a way that keeps us safe.
Let's bring our political panel now. Robin Byro, Democratic strategist and former Obama campaign director, and Tony Kinnett, investigative columnist at the Daily Signal. Thank you both for being here. Robin, Dr. Phil's exclusive access has really allowed our network to highlight the fact that these arrests are being made to detain violent criminals who entered our country illegally. You're looking at the video here. Yet there are those who keep pushing this narrative that migrants are being arrested in these large sweeps. How can anyone argue against what we highlighted yesterday and this morning?
Well, it makes it very difficult for someone like myself to argue anything to the contrary. Of course, I've seen all over social media my friends on the left saying that there are sweeps happening. I'm living in a sanctuary city, Atlanta, Georgia. I was told that, you know, they were pulling people out of church yesterday, but apparently that's not happening. So there's a disconnect. I believe what I'm seeing, though, from Dr. Phil with my own eyes and ears, rather than something I'm reading on social media, for example.
You know, the question becomes, is it a disconnect, Tony, or are people just lying? Are they sending out a false narrative?
I think the question is what the goal of these warnings is. There's this idea that was in the last Trump administration to paint him as super evil mega Hitler. And so when the facts didn't actually support that narrative during the Biden administration, we just started going through the exact same social media routines where if we can't actually point to any Trump policies that are unpopular with Americans, if we can't point to a way that Joe Biden in his administration was better than former president at the time, Donald Trump, then what we can just say is it's going to be this bad. And when you play the telephone game on social media, you end up getting this. They're going to sweep through the public schools and they're going to be rounding up any kid with a skin shade darker than bright white, and they're going to deport them en masse. That didn't happen. But whatever drives clicks on social media seems to be the way, I guess, at the moment to fight against the Trump administration. I don't think that's effective, but that is how that happens.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you won't hear the officials locally there say, hey, great job. These criminals are now out and they're being deported. Now, once these criminals are detained, they need to be repatriated to their countries of origin. One such country, that would be Colombia. Hours after President Donald Trump threatened steep tariffs on imports and other sanctions on Sunday. This is within hours of this breaking news. The White House confirmed that Colombia will accept flights of deported migrants from the U.S. Now, this comes after Colombia's president had initially rejected the flight, saying the U.S. cannot, quote, treat Colombian migrants as criminals. Tony, a seeming win for the Trump White House, but it seems the mere threat of tariffs is enough to sway some world leaders. Is that all it takes?
Yes, and by the way, this is what Donald Trump has articulated since the beginning on tariffs. Of course, he believes that tariffs should play a larger role in United States economic policy comparatively to the income tax. But Trump also has been known to use tariffs as a means of getting what he wants in U.S. foreign policy, which is very unlike President Obama, President Biden, who tried to more acquiesce to other world leaders around the globe. Whereas Donald Trump says, look, if you don't follow through with what United States policy has set forth, since, of course, we're paying foreign aid to all of these nations around around the world, then fine, we'll actually level economic means to get what it is the United States wants. In this case, the return of individuals to the nation of Colombia. And we saw the president of Colombia initially try to hold that off, but then back down after Trump said, fine, well, then the United States will just, take a couple of measures to ensure that we maintain the safety of our citizens, even if that means that, how was it the left influencers put it, cheaper coffee and flowers wouldn't be a thing, or whatever Representative AOC said. That fell apart in about 2 hours.
Yeah, Robin, did the bean import companies contact the president of Colombia and say, what are you doing? This doesn't make sense.
Look, I've got friends in real life that hoarded coffee, Colombian coffee, because they were so convinced that these tariffs were going to be a thing, and they turned out not to be. So this is interesting. My friends on the right always say that Trump likes to play 4D chess. But I think actually in some respect, he actually was doing that with this situation, and it worked. I want to see what he does with Canada, because Canada right now is threatening to not allow the sale of any United States alcohol. And apparently they're a huge consumer of U.S. alcohol. So I want to see how this works out with our friends, our neighbors in the north.
Let's stay with you for a second, Robin, because
Sure.
do you feel like Democrats are scratching their heads thinking, man, this guy gets what he wants, right? You may not agree with the policies. You may not, and I totally understand those things, right? But the bottom line is you cannot argue against results, right?
Oh, yeah, you're exactly right. And look, I'm saying that as someone who's never voted for Donald Trump, but I think that what he did here worked, and it was a masterful move here with Colombia. And I want to see, like I said, how it's going to work with Canada and some of our other trade partners.
Immigration, many people are saying, wasn't the only win for Trump over the weekend. Team Trump continues to take shape with Kristi Noem sworn in over the weekend as the Secretary of Homeland Security. But the big news, Pete Hegseth, he was sworn in as Secretary of Defense. Many people said, hey, there's no way that's going to happen. But guess what? It did. He spoke to reporters following that ceremony of being sworn in. Take a listen here.
We look forward to having the backs of our troops and having your back in executing peace through strength, in putting America first, and in rebuilding our military.
Hegseth, as you know, faced some of the harshest pushback with his nomination. Do you see that same pushback for anyone who remains? Patel, Gabbard, RFK Jr.? We'll start with you first, Tony.
I think that you're going to see a good amount of pushback with Kash Patel, again, given his criticism of how the legacy agency has operated as far as the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, other organizations harboring intelligence officials, for example, that pushed false information forward regarding, for example, the Hunter Biden laptop misinformation story, as well as possibly RFK Jr. on some of his more out there claims regarding science that Trump has already pushed back against, said that's not exactly what we're here for. RFK's moderated on those as well. You'll see some pushback, but I'm not sure that you'll actually see pushback on those issues. It seems that Senator Mazie Hirono, for example, of Hawaii, is more interested in asking about the individual's sex lives rather than issues that Americans care about. So it's really anyone's guess how those confirmation hearings will go.
Robin, when I'm at the store and I pass by the chip aisle and I look at all the chips with red dye 3, I'm sitting there going, okay, RFK Jr., the confirmation hearing is coming. Are we going to, in this hearing with RFK Jr., are we going to see what he believes and what he doesn't believe? Because the internet is just blustering with information on what he stands for.
And misinformation. Make no mistake, I'm seeing so much misinformation all over the place from some of my friends on the left. So let's get this out. Let him have his say. I want all of these candidates to have, nominees to have their say and speak their truth, because there's so much misinformation.
Robin, do you believe the ones that have already been confirmed, are there any that you scratched your head and said, I just didn't think that was going to happen, but it did, and why it happened? Who were those names?
Hegseth. And I'll say that because, look, I'm a veteran Army Ranger. I've been to combat. And my friends on the right didn't think that was going to happen. They thought that Donald Trump had lost some confidence in Hegseth because he wasn't completely forthcoming about some of the allegations against him. So that one, I was surprised. And, honestly, I'm just saying this. We got a junior enlisted officer replacing an 010 general. So I honestly, truly didn't think that was going to happen, but I'm hoping for the best here, but preparing for the worst.
All right. Robin Byro, thank you for your service, by the way, sir.
Thank
Tony Kinnett, thank you again for joining us this morning. We do appreciate the context.
Thanks, guys.